Title: The Echo Box, How a Simple Recording Drove Its Listeners Mad. Help this channel grow. Like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more stories. This helps us a lot. Thank you. The story begins: the package arrived at Liam Becker's Berlin studio in the dead of winter. No return address. Just his name, typed on a faded label. The air outside was brittle, the sky a flat, featureless gray. Liam, a man whose world was built of decibels and frequencies, was intrigued. His studio was a sanctuary of warm wood and soft light, a stark contrast to the grim city outside. Inside the box, nestled in yellowing foam, was a vintage acetate reel. A single typewritten note was tucked beside it: "What is the source of the signal?" Liam, a rational man, assumed it was a prank from a fellow audio nerd or a bizarre sample for a client's experimental project. He threaded the tape onto his restored Studer machine. The speakers, worth more than his car, hissed with anticipation. The first sound was the crash of a distant wave, looping every 7 seconds. Then, the faint cry of a gull. It was a recording of a seaside cliff. Mediocre quality. He almost dismissed it. But then he heard it. Beneath the wave and the gull, so quiet it was almost subliminal, was a voice. It wasn't speaking words. It was a whisper, a sibilant breath that seemed to coil around the other sounds. It didn't feel human. It felt imitative. Like something trying to replicate the pattern of speech without understanding its meaning. A cold finger traced a line down Liam's spine. He increased the gain, applied filters. The voice became clearer, a looping, breathy sigh. It was unsettling, but professionally so. He called 2 colleagues. Ilara Vance, a sharp, skeptical psychoacoustics researcher from Cambridge, and Ben Carter, a veteran field recordist with a weathered face and a cynical eye. He emailed them the file. "Weird one," he wrote. "Tell me what you hear." Ilara listened on her pristine studio headphones. She noted the anomalous vocalization, classifying it as a probable audio pareidolia, the brain tricking itself into hearing patterns in noise. But her report, typed in crisp, academic language, contained a single, unprofessional line at the end: "Subjectively, the sample induces a pronounced sense of melancholy." I found myself unnerved. Ben, listening on his laptop in a hotel room in Scotland, had a more visceral reaction. He called Liam immediately, his voice tight. "Where did you get this, Liam? This isn't right. It sounds like something lonely." He refused to elaborate further. The mystery had its hooks in them. They began their investigation in earnest, a digital triangle of shared files and late-night calls. They isolated the whisper. It wasn't a word in any language. They called it the sigh. This was the discovery. The calm, rational beginning. The wave before the undertow, the dread began not with a bang, but with a slow, creeping corrosion of their realities. Liam was the first to break. He'd been listening to the loop for hours, trying to isolate the exact frequency of the sigh. He fell asleep at his console, the sound whispering from his speakers. He woke to the smell of salt and damp stone. His studio, in the heart of a landlocked city, reeked of the sea. The scent clung to his clothes, his hair, for days. He checked for leaks, for rotting food. Nothing. Then came the dreams. Vivid, cold dreams of standing on a windswept cliff edge, staring down at a churning, black ocean. In the dream, he felt an overwhelming, gravitational pull to step off. He started wearing headphones less, finding the isolation with the sound too intense. Ben's descent was more obvious. His field recordings, once full of the rich texture of the natural world, began to change. He sent Liam a new file from the Scottish Highlands. It was meant to be a recording of a babbling brook. But beneath the water, clear as day, was the sigh. It was in a different pitch, a different timbre, but the pattern was unmistakable. "It's bleeding through," Ben said over a crackling Zoom call, his face gaunt. I hear it in the wind now. In the rain. It's everywhere. He had stopped shaving. He looked like a man being hunted by a sound. Ilara, the scientist, fought it the longest. She ran the sample through every analytical tool she had. Her data was terrifying. The size waveform was unnaturally stable, a perfect, repeating pattern that didn't decay like any biological or environmental sound. It was, for lack of a better word, manufactured. But by what? Her skepticism shattered one night in her soundproof lab. She was alone, correlating the frequency of the sigh with known psychological triggers. The loop played softly. She heard a new sound. A soft, wet, scraping noise, like a body being dragged over gravel. It was not on the tape. It was in the room with her. She ripped her headphones off, her heart hammering against her ribs. The room was silent. But the smell of salt water and cold, wet stone was now in Cambridge. The investigation was no longer an intellectual puzzle. It was a contagion. The tape wasn't just a recording, it was a carrier. A signal that was slowly tuning their perception of reality to its own horrific frequency. Their clues now contradicted everything they knew. Physics, acoustics, psychology, it was all failing them. Desperate, they pooled their resources. Liam, using a contact in the German Federal Archives, finally traced the tape's box. It was a match for packaging used in a long-forgotten Cold War-era psychological research program, designated Project Lullaby. The files, recently declassified and buried in a digital basement, were sparse. The project's goal was audacious: to engineer an acoustic key, a specific sound sequence that could bypass conscious resistance and implant suggestions directly into the subconscious mind. A sonic weapon for the mind. They were trying to create the perfect, undetectable command. The final report was a single, chilling paragraph. The key does not implant external suggestion. Instead, it appears to unlock a pre-existing, latent cognitive frequency within the test subjects, which we have designated the substrate. Exposure to this frequency results in irreversible perceptual distortion, wherein the subject's sensory input is gradually overwritten by a singular, hostile environmental memory. The source of this memory is unknown. The effect is contagious through prolonged auditory exposure. Project terminated. All assets to be incinerated. Asterisk. One tape had not been burned. It had found its way to Liam. They finally understood. The sigh wasn't a message. It was the key. It wasn't a ghost or a monster. It was a piece of rogue code for the human brain. It didn't show you a horror, it rewired you to perceive one. The cliff, the cold, the dragging sound, it was the hostile environmental memory, described in the file, a psychic phantom pain triggered by the signal. They arranged a final call. Ben didn't show up. 2 days later, police in a small Scottish coastal town found his rental car. The door was open, the keys in the ignition. On the passenger seat was his field recorder. The last file was 10 hours of the sound of the sea, and the clear, unmistakable sound of his own voice, whispering back into the microphone. Ben Carter was never seen again. Liam destroyed the tape. He melted the reel into a shapeless plastic slag. Ilara deleted all the files. They cut all contact, hoping to break the chain of exposure. The camera rests on Liam's face. He looks tired, older. He's sitting in a new apartment, the windows covered. We thought that was the end. We had contained it. But a week ago, Ilara called me. Her voice was a ghost. She said she was in her kitchen, making tea, and for a single, heart-stopping second, the steam from the kettle smelled like salt water. And this morning, I woke up. And for the first time since this began, I could hear the faint, crashing sound of a wave, looping in the back of my mind. The box is gone. The tape is destroyed. But the key is still turning. If you thought this story was terrifying, wait until you hear what happened in the next one. subscribe before it drops.